So a lot of people got in this business thinking that this is the way things will always be. I believe that there's going to be a lot more attrition. And I also believe that as a result, there's going to be licensees who will need more support than they thought was necessary. So consequently, yeah, I think teams will be a good option.
Welcome to the Real Estate Coffee House. Today's feature is Team of Joe with Tony Joe. Michael and Tony have a spot saved for you at their table. Enjoy the chat. Welcome to the Real Estate Coffee House podcast. I am Michael Thorne of Remax Lifestyles Realty and the Thorne Maisie Bongers Real Estate Group in Langley, BC. And I've been challenged to have the title of every episode of this podcast be a coffee pun. And when your guest's last name is Joe, it is a layup. It is an absolute layup. Today's guest is Tony Joe, who is the broker owner at Remax Island Properties. He is the team leader of Prime Real Estate Team in Victoria, British Columbia. He is a speaker, educator, radio host, and a Trekkie, and much, much more. Tony Joe.
Here for your cup of Joe, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this. Now, Tony and I are going to pour over the pros and cons of real estate teams, but first, we have to dig into the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Each week, we take a few minutes with our guests to dig into a real estate news story. Now, Tony, I scoured the internet to try to find a news story about this topic just as an excuse that we can talk about it. Something that was released in the last week or so that I could add a link down in the description of the podcast, but I couldn't. But I still want to talk about it because I think you and I are a rarity. The fact that we are both agents in British Columbia. It was just over 4 years ago today that dual agency was banned from British Columbia. And those that I think thought it would impact them the most were probably teams. I know my position on dual agency. I am shocked that it hasn't crept into more markets throughout North America. But want to get your input on it now that it's been around for quite some time. Are you pro or con when it comes to the ban of dual agency that we saw here 4 years ago?
I am pro banning of dual agency. And it's interesting because, we all had those conversations very early on, and there were some people who knew that it was going to hurt their business. A colleague of mine up in Duncan, his business typically was around 25% dual agency. And that was going to hurt. Now, for me, I looked at the numbers, and maybe you guys are about the same. I was about 5%, so I was never a big number anyways. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I do have to say is I think people forget that we did have before the ability to still represent the seller, but service the buyer in an unrepresented non-client manner. That's not new with the new rules. That was there before.
Yeah.
Right. And whenever I had the necessity to do that, because I do a development for a church here in Victoria, I always did no agency with a buyer anyways. Mm-hmm. So consequently, it never changed. I think that was misused. I think a lot of realtors felt that in order to handle both the buying side and the selling side of a property, it meant they had to do dual agency.
Yep.
Except they didn't act that way.
How have you seen it through the eyes of a consumer here over the last 4 years?
Well, there's no question there's confusion because when consumers still, I think, feel that the home buying process is kind of like going to a car lot, and they go to an open house, and then if they like the house, then they ask the host agent to take care of things or whatever, and they don't understand that agent cannot look after their best interests. And that agent also cannot sell their house because the listing agent who's hosting the open house is bound by fiduciary law to represent the seller. So there is some confusion with consumers. I do believe, though, I know in conversation with buyers, especially when we go through that whole disclosure of representation and trading services form, that I believe that consumers do feel that avoiding conflicts of interest is a good thing for them, as it should be.
And do you envision it, as I do, creeping into other markets throughout North America?
Yeah, just waiting for it to happen in Ontario.
Yeah.
I have been telling classes, by the way, because I still teach buyer agency and I still teach the applied practice course here in BC. When the market was crazy, when it was bidding wars, multiple offers, all of that stuff, I was counting my lucky stars about the fact that we had this in BC, because I was looking in Ontario, and there was still the practice of don't call your realtor. Deal with me direct. I'll give you that, special treatment. And the buyer is therefore incented maybe by money without knowing that they weren't getting representation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I hear a lot of the stories, you can't do coming soon campaigns in the States. Well, that's because of dual agency, that they want to pull that back, because then they see it as sleeving a listing. In a banned dual agency market like we're in, a coming soon campaign is marketing that's trying to benefit the client you're representing, having more people come through the front door for the first couple of days. And I think it really alleviates a whole lot of problem when it comes to the reasoning agents are doing certain things by banning it. And
as much as it's extra paperwork for us, and it is a real pain, there's no question there, at the end of the day, it's meant for transparency for consumers. And I think that's a good thing.
The pouring of a fresh cup means we're moving on to the main topic of today's chat with Tony Joe. We are talking teams. Tony Joe has a team out there in Victoria, and I really want, Tony, this chat to be the person sitting down listening to us chat about teams is an agent, a solo agent, whether that's a brand new agent or a veteran agent of 10 years. And I want to talk about teams in a way that would answer those questions. Is a team something I should be a part of or not a part of? So let's start off with Tony Joe, the individual agent, and how did you go to grow into the Prime Real Estate team?
Well, so it's interesting because you and I started about the same time. Like, we're old. Yeah. We're old guys. Except you were younger. You started when you were like 19 or something, right?
19, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I was 21. And you remember, we didn't have teams back then.
Absolutely.
And I remember, especially back then in BC, you couldn't have another job. You could only be a realtor. Mm-hmm. And I remembered, when we were young, it's the scare of how am I going to get into this? How am I not going to have a regular paycheck? Where's my security blanket, my security net? And there wasn't one. Back then, it wasn't even an option. And I think if I started now, when joining a team is an option, it would be a great way to fast track development, to transact more. That's one of those things. In order to build your experience and your skills, you need to transact more.
Yeah.
I don't know what the stats are in the Fraser Valley, but here in Victoria, we look at the number of sales to the number of realtors, and the average is 6.8 transactions a year.
Exactly.
Which means the average realtor not very well practiced, right?
I do agree with you. I think when I started, that you're right. Teams weren't the norm outside, the husband-wife teams that existed out there. And I've definitely seen our industry get a lot younger over the last 20 years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the ability of a younger agent to join and be mentored in the team structure. Because does the team structure, Tony, fulfill what the general public or an aspiring agent would assume the role of the broker, owner, or manager would be? To provide that education, the systems, the experience, the know-how, the mentorship?
Most definitely. Definitely. I mean, and again, going back in time, when you and I started, the brokerage model was different because the brokerages provided more services to licensees and took a bigger split. And then it shifted to minimum services, minimum split. And now we're coming back full circle to, a licensee joining a team and getting services like training, like education from the team lead, that maybe the brokerage is not providing. From a consumer standpoint, I would say there still remains some degree of confusion. Because I think one of the difficulties, unless it's a team that is very highly evolved and very clear in their intention and their marketing, sometimes consumers, I feel, can be, well, who am I dealing with? Who's my agent? How does this work? I think there can be some confusion for consumers.
Is that the responsibility of the touch point communicator, the initial communicator, to then articulate the value that is behind that agent? Is that on the onus of the consumer to understand that, or is it job for us to be able to articulate the value of the team?
It's the job of the team. It's the job of the team and the licensee. Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's all about the consumer experience. Mm-hmm. Like, are they enjoying their experience? Are they getting the service and the attention that they deserve? Right.
And Tony, that's new. In the sense that if agents, are 10 years or younger, our value proposition as an industry, not as an individual agent, I'm not talking about you or me or the individual agent, but as an industry, was we had the information the consumer did not. Mm-hmm. And that was our value proposition. You wanted a listing, you had to come to us. Now that is being taken from us, and thank goodness it has, then we convert over to it being an experience, about being customer experience, about trust and confidence and all those other things that come along with it, because that our value proposition can't be we have information you don't have.
Yeah, because everyone's got information.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, there are many different structures of teams, Tony, and I think Jorda, myself, and Trish is definitely that non-traditional model of teams, and there's a bunch of different team models out there. Would you describe the Prime Real Estate team as being a more traditional styled real estate team?
Well, you know what? I guess it's sort of like what's the definition of traditional, right?
I think the traditional is the one main agent, and then expanding from there and building off that one agent in a bit of a pyramid, where Jorda, Trish, and I are all standing right next to each other, and there's not really the hierarchy there is.
Got it.
The traditional.
Got it. Because you know what? There's a difference between a partnership, as you alluded to before, husband and wife, right? And then I guess in that definition, the traditional team of having a team leader and having other team members, who perform specific tasks. I have always been, well, actually, let's just talk about my back history a bit. So I started for 11 years on my own as a single agent. Mm-hmm. So I did experience, the whole working on my own without an assistant, having to be good at paperwork, which I'm not inherently good at, and trying to juggle things. In 2003, I think it was, my last year without a team or without assistant. 2002. I did 62 transactions on my own single-handed. But I was young. We were younger, you and I, right?
Yeah, the kids.
That's right. And I had the energy. I didn't have a family. I didn't have commitments. I was willing to work. Right. I started coaching. I got a coach. She empowered me to get a assistant, which I didn't feel I needed because I felt I was quite efficient with paperwork. And I was scared, just like everyone else, of hiring somebody and having the commitment of having to, give them work and paying them and all that. But I got to tell you, I've never been without an assistant ever since 2003. And from there, grew out to having a buyer agent in about 2004, which, you think about it back then, still a very novel idea. My broker owner did not know what a buyer agent was.
Yeah.
And he had to speak to other brokers across the country just to see how it works. He was concerned about, how to work out desk fees or whatnot. I was fortunate because I managed to connect with somebody who, she worked a husband and wife team. She worked with all the buyers all the time. They split up as a couple. Mm-hmm. So she was sort of wandering aimlessly, looking for a place of being, right? Mm-hmm. And it was our timing was perfect. So I ended up giving her all the buyers. We worked together for years. She was fantastic, and she helped pave the way to building a team.
So it, I mean, the numbers definitely change over the years, but you're structured out with what, about five different roles on your team about now?
Yeah. So I have a primary buyer agent. Yep. Right. So I am generally the listing agent. I take care of all of our sellers. And when a seller comes to buy, then Megan takes over. I also have an associate agent, and he's an established agent. He's been licensed for, I think it's 14 years on his own. He's more of a support role. So it's really just the three of us selling licenses. And then I have another licensee who is our inside sales agent. So he does all of our follow-up lead conversion. We do some online lead generation. And then I have a administrator. So, we're lean. I believe in lean. I've never had the desire to have a 30-person team. Really do prefer that sort of smaller team arrangement.
Okay, we're sitting at a coffee table with a brand new agent and also an agent of 10 years. What are the pros for each of those individuals of becoming a member on a team? What's the benefit?
So the brand new agent, as we said a moment ago, it's gaining experience quicker. Probably a wider cross-section of experiences. If it's condos, co-ops, leases, land purchases, things like that, there will be more experience. Also with the team, you are plugging into what should be established systems. So, CRMs, an administrator, things like that. The thing that a new licensee often thinks about is, but I'm going to be giving up. I'll be giving up, a sizable percentage of my commission. Well, the other thing too is a lot of teams provide leads. So sign call conversions, ad call conversions, things that they would never have, right?
And I think a new agent doesn't realize, and this is maybe where the difference is between the two agents. I don't think a new agent understands necessarily how much work and experience and reputation goes into generating those leads. It seems like that could be the easy part when you're just being handed it, and the conversion is the hard part, or the time spent with the buyer or the seller in that transaction phase. But really, it's the reputation to generate that initial opportunity that's quite difficult.
Yeah, absolutely, and you see it too, because when markets change. When markets are harder and the team members are part of the team and things are going, plugging away just fine, and then the market gets busy and things start rocking and the buyer agent starts thinking, I don't need the team anymore. I can go out on my own.
Yeah.
And often it's a sort of rude awakening, especially when the market rebalances, where it's not just the good times that you're making sales. It's got to be on the flat times as well. And I guess that's really what a team is good for a newer agent, is flattening the peaks and valleys in our industry, right?
Absolutely. So then, what's the advantage for that 10-year veteran to join a team?
Well, it must always be a function of what is that individual lacking that a team could provide, and vice versa. So there are many licensees out there that have practiced for 5 or 10 years. They know the business, they know how to do things, but perhaps they have an issue with prospecting. Maybe they've never been good at attracting new business. They have the real big swings in the peaks and valleys. And again, that's what a team can do. The other thing too about a team is, hey, anyone who's been in this long enough knows there are times where you need your days off, you need your time off, and to have a functional team that covers you, right? I mean, that's a luxury for a lot of solo agents that have never encountered that before, right?
Yeah, I do think teams probably minimize burnout compared to the individual agent.
Yeah.
There's just no off button when you're the individual agent, and you can't control your days the same way. So sitting at the table, the same two agents, a brand new agent and a veteran agent of 10 years, Tony, why wouldn't they want to join a team?
Well, the drawbacks, of course, are they're going to be giving up their identity. And the thing about this business is it's built for that ego, right? People want their names on the signs. They want their names on the billboards or the bus benches or things like that. And to join a team, you give it up because all of a sudden you're part of a team. So that's going to be one of the big drawbacks. The other another potential drawback is I think a candidate for a team has got to be very careful about who they choose to work with, because we've also seen cases where people join a team with the best of intentions and it's not what it was promised.
Yeah.
Maybe business isn't coming in, leads aren't coming in, and that person ends up just kind of being on the sidelines and it's just another number, right? That I think is an area of concern for someone thinking of. So ask the right questions, ask around, right?
Yep. And then there's also like the value of the team to the individual agent. Is the value of the fact that they're going to be providing leads that are generated from this bigger machine, or is the value in you get to go out and prospect on your own, but we as a team are going to provide you the systems and the experience and the education? I think it's probably a mix of both, but once again, that's what the traditional brokerage used to do, and I think the teams are really feeling that vacancy.
Oh my goodness! And then you know what? There are admin staff out there that handle everything for the team member. Submitting documents, paperwork, making appointments for showings. To have that support without having to pay for it, or without having to worry about employing that person or dealing with HR issues. That's all left for the team leader, right?
So you and I are kind of in agreement. If we go back to being 19 and 21, but it is in 2022, we would be going and interviewing teams kind of day one. Is that how you would see your career starting now?
I think so. But as a team lead, I would like to share what my number one gripe is.
With teams?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. It's more with candidates, because we get people that approach us all the time saying, "I want to join your team." Well, why? Well, because I want to learn everything and I want to fast track so that I can build my own business. Whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah.
So you want us to give you the secret sauce?
You want me to be a stepping stone?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've always taken on the position of. I believe in full transparency. I had a buyer agent for 10 years. She just went off on her own 2 years ago, and we're still fast friends, and it was time for her, right?
Yeah.
But as you know, it takes a lot of effort, time, and also money to onboard a team member, and to have them, only try you out for a year and then leave. It's not good. And it's not good for our customers, for our clients as well, too. Right.
And is there a solution for that through the eyes of a team lead?
Well, one of the things that we're always looking for are those people that are team focused. There are people who are very much team individuals, and ones that aren't, ones that will never have that team mentality. Team mentality is so important.
And I think the younger generation, and I keep saying that as we age out, I think the much more fans of the collaboration, of camaraderie, of culture, of being around other people. And I think teams are just going to continue to play a larger role. That being said, do you think that there's even more value? And we've already touched on it. The market's changing here. It's changing throughout North America. Yeah. Is this changing market going to mean that there's even more value than prior years in teams?
Well, the general convention is that there is an 80 or 85% attrition rate for licensees after 2 years. And personally, I think that number is going to be higher now, because we just came off a couple of busy years with record numbers of new licensees in the province of BC. Got to be true elsewhere as well, too. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people got in this business thinking that this is the way things will always be. I believe that there's going to be a lot more attrition.
Yeah. And
I also believe that as a result, there's going to be licensees who will need more support than they thought was necessary. So consequently, I think teams will be a good option.
Now it's time for Been There, Done That.
Tell him he gives me a cup of coffee, I'll answer his questions.
We are on to the rapid fire round of 7 questions focused on our guests' years of real estate experience. All right, Tony, question number 1.
Yes.
You've moved to a new area. What would the number one thing you'd be looking for in a new brokerage?
The managing broker is always going to be key. Who's that person that's going to support you? Talking about teams here, somebody who leads a culture and who leads, an environment of growth and support and all that stuff. Yeah, a managing broker.
Number 2, what advice would you give an agent who's never experienced a dramatic market shift to help them get the most out of a changing market?
Speak to old guys. Speak to Michael Thorne, right? Speak to somebody, hey, you and I, 30 years. So we've seen the swings happen a few times. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, it shocks me how rarely people actually phone up and say, "Can I take you for coffee and talk about this business. Because I tell you, anyone who asks, I will say yes. And I think there's other people that would too.
I totally agree. Yeah. Number 3, in your business today, what single activity or product gives you the best ROI of time and or dollars?
Oh my God. Being out there. Just being out there. You know, is it being out? Is it community stuff? Is it being in the grocery store? Is it, you think about it. We're also accustomed to getting food and stuff delivered to our homes. We're missing that little magic of being out and actually having those little meet cutes and bumping into people.
Yeah, I love that part of the job. And when you, like yourself, are on television and on the radio and involved in the community, and someone says, "Hey, Tony," the big first thing is, "Oh, how do I know this person?" It's a lot, because I've walked the streets of Victoria with you, Tony.
The gate, yes.
It's a remarkable experience. Question number 4: what is the worst movie you legitimately enjoy?
Oh my God. I'll give you 2. No, number 1, because I don't think it's a bad movie. I just love it. Is 1980 Flash Gordon.
Okay.
Yeah. But the other one, which is my guilty pleasure, that I also from 1980, I think, Maxwell Smart, The Nude Bomb. Do you remember that one?
That's a movie I have not seen.
That is so bad, but it is so good. I love it.
All right, I'll hunt that down online.
Yes.
Number 5, what is the best piece of business advice you've received?
The best piece of business advice is just, it'll happen. Don't force it. Things happen, and I think if our mind is in the right place, things always happen. Don't push it.
Number 6, a 30,000-foot view. What is something you wish you could change about the industry?
What bothers me about the industry is inefficiency. And what I mean by that is, the habit of overpricing and agents, going through the process of spending money on marketing and whatever, staging and photos and floor plans, only to have that property expire and then picked up by somebody else. I think if we were more true to ourselves, and if there was a way to make it so that it was more efficient, I do feel that a lot of real estate income is necessary to pay off those written off expenses.
I don't disagree. Number 7, in one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
Encyclopedia Britannica comes to mind for some reason.
That's what you think of it? It's just a place for information.
Well, because remember, when we grew up, we had the shelf of, and that's where we went for stuff, right?
Yeah. I just that the books never talked back and said mean things back in the day in the library. So it's you always see everything through a positive light. I love that.
Oh my God.
Thanks, Tony, for being my guest and spilling the beans on real estate teams. And thank you, the listener, for joining Tony, Joe, and myself for a chat about Team of Joe here at the Real Estate Coffee House. We hope it brewed up some value for you. And remember to enjoy the grind.
That's this week's episode of the Real Estate Coffee House podcast with your host, Michael Thorne. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode. The Real Estate Coffee House podcast is brought to you by Thorne Maisie Bongers Real Estate Group with Remax Lifestyles Realty in Langley, BC. Thank you for listening.